Oh yes, I'll see you in the rapture. I'll see you in the rapture. I'll see you at that meeting in the air.
This is Evangelist Henry Walker. Welcome to the podcast. I want to start a new message today talking about the momentum that is building towards a possible springtime rapture. Let's go to Father in prayer first. Father, I thank you for another opportunity to minister to your people, Father. I ask you to use me just the way you want, Father. Let me say only what you want me to say, nothing more and nothing less. Help people, Father, to open up their spirits and not only receive the word, but study the word for themselves. And Father, we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. So again, what I want to talk about is how much momentum is building right after starting with the eclipse of April 8th, going into the feast days, Passover, unleavened bread, Feast of First Fruits, going all the way to June 12th, which is the end of Pentecost. There's so much momentum building. It's like a wave coming in from the ocean onto the sand. It's building up so much power. It's like a spiritual tidal wave, a good tidal wave of momentum that's coming our way, where the Father is alerting us and telling us to watch, because this could be the season. This momentum could propel us into the rapture. So if you turn me to the book of Ruth, Ruth is right after Joshua, Judges, before 1st and 2nd Samuel. While you're turning there, I want to remind you that if you enjoy these podcasts, hit the like button, share, subscribe, tell other people about the podcast, and leave a comment. I so much appreciate that. On YouTube, you can use the captions if you don't have the word with you. So book of Ruth, I want to talk about the springtime feast, about the momentum building, and starting with the book of Ruth. See, right after the Feast of First Fruits, the high priest would have the first grain from the barley harvest and wave it before the Father. And so Ruth and Naomi are coming from that first fruits feast day with the offering of the first fruits of the barley harvest. Naomi and Ruth are returning to Naomi's land in Bethlehem, and it's right at the time of the barley harvest in Ruth chapter 1, verse 22. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and he came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest, springtime. See, the harvest began in early spring with the flax and the barley, then the wheat and the figs in the late spring. And there's so much in this story. Now Boaz, who became the husband of Ruth, he was descended from Nahshon. Nahshon was the chief of the tribe of Judah coming out of Egypt, going into the promised land. One of the leaders leading them into the promised land on Passover. And not only that, Boaz was descended from Rahab. Rahab was a Gentile woman who escaped out of Jericho. And so here you have Naomi telling Ruth to go approach Boaz, not just to glean, but just to lay by his side, which is an indication that she wanted him to be her kinsman redeemer. It's like how we draw closer and closer to Yeshua in these last days, closer and closer. And then Boaz went to a nearer kinsman and asked him if he wanted to take Ruth and the land of Naomi as the next kinsman, but he refused. In verse 9, chapter 4, and Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, Ye are witnesses this day that have brought all that was Amalek's and all that was Shilian's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place. You are witnesses this day. So Boaz would be the kinsman to redeem Ruth. It's like Yeshua redeeming us, paying the price for our redemption. The people said to Boaz, In verse 12, let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the father shall give thee of this young woman. Remember about Pharez, Tamar bore twins. And some of you might remember the story about Pharez. Tamar had twins from Judah, and Zerah, Pharez's brother, was supposed to come out first. But Pharez came out first, and he broke forth. And this is an excellent time for breakthrough, and the ultimate breakthrough will be in the rapture. And Yeshua is descended from Pharez. Verse 13, so Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife, and when he went into her, the father gave her conception, and she bare a son. So this started on the Feast of First Fruits at the early springtime barley harvest. And here's the marriage of Ruth with Boaz. So the father was dealing with me about that, and also he was dealing with me about the feast days, especially the feast days that have happened already. Like in Egypt with Passover, it started the whole deliverance process on Passover. And there's so much of it started on this Passover that we just had, in this Passover season, with Passover and unleavened bread. The end of unleavened bread being April 30th. You had Passover, then 7 days of unleavened bread. And again, Passover started this momentum. And just because Yeshua didn't come back on Passover or unleavened bread, doesn't mean he's not coming back this spring. Because the momentum is already building for his entrance, so to speak, to take us up in the air. In the book of Joshua, let's go back to the left, past Judges, Joshua chapter 5. Joshua chapter 5 in verse 10. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at evening in the plains of Jericho. Nisan 14. And they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. And so in verse 12, and the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land, neither had the children of Israel manna any more, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. So we just had the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And so you can see how the father told Joshua, go around Jericho once a day for 6 days. And on the seventh day, go around 7 times, or 13. 13 is a blessed number. The devil just tried to rob that. It's a blessed number. It's a number of deliverance. And so you have Passover and 7 days of unleavened bread, or 7 days. On the last day of unleavened bread is when Jericho came down. It's the day that Rahab was delivered from Jericho. And it's pointing to the fact that Yeshua wants to deliver us from this world and to bring us to the marriage feast of the Lamb. So you just can't ignore the fact that, well, Passover happened, he didn't come back. Unleavened bread happened, he didn't come back. But it's a momentum that's building. It's a deliverance process where the Father's delivering us from any of the entrapments in the world and cleaning us up and getting us ready for the rapture. And that's where that set-apart process, that sanctification process, is so important. We have to surrender everything to the Father. And if you haven't, you can do it right now. Just say, Father, I surrender everything to you. I turn my whole life over to you. Come into my spirit. Fill me with your spirit. Mortify the deeds of my flesh. Kill the desires of my flesh. And make me more and more like Jesus Yeshua, bringing the fruit of the Spirit out of my life every day. So this sanctification process is the Father getting us ready for the rapture. And he's delivering us from things that would hold us back from going into the rapture. So it's so important, if we have anything in our relationship to the Father through Yeshua that has any pagan roots in it, we need to ask the Father to get it out of our lives. Because you don't want anything that's going to keep you earthbound. And I have messages on my website at henrywalker.org. The number one written message is, when was Yeshua born? When did he die? When did he rise? And also, wine is a marker, the truth about wine, the truth about divorce and remarriage. It's very important. And the truth about women in ministry. There's important written messages that really help you and help to get us ready for the rapture. So that's a beautiful example of an escape during the springtime. And you think about the Red Sea opening. on Nisan 17, which was April 24th. That's the time when Yeshua rose, April 24th, the Feast of First Fruits. So that same resurrection power is building up a momentum coming our way to take us up in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. It's a momentum that's building. It's so important right now to let the Father work on us. I talked about how every day He wants to work on us and do like a pre-spiritual operation. And on the Sabbath, which is Friday 6 p.m. and Saturday 6 p.m., to perform that operation when we are resting in Him. I'm not saying you don't go to your congregation on Sunday, but don't bypass the Sabbath. Going to your congregation on Sunday is between you and the Father, but the Sabbath is real. Never done away with. It was written with the finger of the Father. Paul kept the Sabbath. Yeshua kept the Sabbath. You can read a message on my website, Sabbath versus Sunday. It's important that we ask the Father to get anything out of our relationship to Him, to Yeshua, that's not of Him. Be honest. Just because so many people think opposite of what I'm saying doesn't make it wrong, because the road to heaven is straight and narrow and few are found on it. It's Constantine that tried to pollute Christianity with his form of Christianity. And he did a great job 1700 years ago. But it's up to us to hear from the Father and make sure there's nothing that could be traced back to the devil, to paganism, in our relationship to the Father through Yeshua. And also remember, with Joseph, he wanted his bones to be taken out of Egypt, and that happened on Passover. There's so many hints from the Word about the Passover season ushering in the rapture. So on Passover, they took his bones out of Egypt. And it says in 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 16, that the dead in Christ shall rise first. It's another beautiful hint. If you go with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, talking about the Feast of First Fruits, that was April 24th. That's when Yeshua rose from the dead. He gave up his life on Nisan 14 and rose on Nisan 17, 72 hours later. Remember, I mentioned to you that in going back and tracing, when Yeshua died, it was 31 AD. April 25th, on a Wednesday, and there was a blood moon. And the blood is a type of His blood that was shed for us. So if you add 2,000 years to 31 AD, you're up to 2031, which is the time of His second coming. Then if you subtract 7 years from 2031, you're in 2024. The 7 years being the 7 years tribulation. So we're right in that season right now. It's important to let Him get us ready. We can't get ready ourselves. When it says the bride has made herself ready, we have surrendered to the Father so He can work on us with a spiritual operation every Friday at 6 p.m. and Saturday at 6 p.m. But, the choice is up to you. I'm just pointing out this is a season where the bride has made herself ready by submitting even more to the Father every day. So 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 23. But every man in his own order, Yeshua the first fruits, afterward they that are Yeshua's at His coming. The Feast of First Fruits, Nisan 17, April 24th, the same day that the Red Sea opened up. In the same chapter, in verse 51, he talks about the rapture. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. And we talked about that on the last podcast. In a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. Death is swallowed up in victory. Praise the Father. Verse 58, therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, by not being moved by anything that's happening in the world. Because we're in the world, but not of the world. Always abounding in the work of Yeshua, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in Yeshua. So again, here's the Feast of First Fruits, pointing to the rapture season. And Jonah spent 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, and Yeshua said, just like Jonah, the Son of Man is going to spend 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So again, He died on Wednesday at 3 p.m., rose on Saturday, the Sabbath at 3 p.m. They didn't come to the tomb till after the Sabbath, because they didn't want to go near a dead body. If they had gotten to the tomb at 3 p.m., they would have seen Him rise. So the only ones that saw Him rise, which is very sad, are the keepers of the tomb. So they came sometime after 6 p.m. when the Sabbath was over. In John chapter 20, verse 1, the tomb was empty. He had already risen. And also remember we talked about Yeshua being born on Passover and how the lambs only were birthed in the springtime. So Yeshua being born on Passover, dying on Passover, is a beautiful hint about the power of this Passover season and how it could be pointing to the rapture, all that momentum. And remember we talked about on prior podcasts about Israel was formed on May 14th, 1948. And May 14th, 2024, it'll be 75 years. That's tomorrow. I'm doing this on May 13th. That's 75 years. And Abraham entered the promised land at 75 years old. Are you ready to go in the rapture? Are you ready to go in that promised land? Well, make sure by talking to the Father about what I'm saying. Search the Word to what I'm saying. Don't just run away from what I'm saying. Study the Word and get ready. Watch. Be careful. And this pre-rapture momentum started with that eclipse on April 8th. How many cities did that eclipse go over with 100% totality that were named from the Word? We talked about Jonah, Texas, and Gord, Texas, going to Nineveh. Jonah went to Nineveh. He slept under a gourd, and then the gourd was taken away, and he was at Nineveh. And Nineveh repented. There's so much vengeance by the Father coming on the United States and the world for turning their backs on Him. Read my message on the website, written message about tribulation preview. It's from the book of Lamentations, where the Father becomes an enemy to some of His people. And there's no comfort. There's no peace in the tribulation. The worst kind of people you will be around, you can't escape them. The most evil people. And it talks about ministers sighing because they were left there after the rapture with their congregations. It's going to be a terrible time, and so the idea is to avoid it and to surrender everything to the Father and let Him work on us and get us ready. Because the biggest problem we have is not Satan, not Slewfoot, it's our flesh. And when you turn your flesh over to the Father so He can mortify the deeds of our flesh, then He controls our flesh. So the only access that Satan has to us is through the flesh. So when Satan tries to work on us, he's coming face to face with the Spirit of the Father. He's got to back off. And remember we talked about the word migna. It means an assembly. And we know certain feast days have an assembly in them. Like at Passover, the first day unleavened bread was an assembly, a solemn assembly that had to be in the temple. And the last day unleavened bread was a solemn assembly. And then I talked about on June 4th is when Yeshua ascended, 40 days after He rose. And they all assembled on the Mount of Olives and watched Him go up. So, He could be coming back on that date. And then you have Pentecost, June 11th to June 12th. That is an assembly. They're assembled in the upper room. And so we know that the first trump is a call to assemble. And the last trump is to go. So that first trump could be heard on one of those assembly dates. It's just important that you watch and be careful. Go to the book of Revelation chapter 16 with me. Some of this I'm reviewing from prior podcasts about the feast days, because as I mentioned, the Father is talking to me about a momentum that's building since the eclipse, since Passover. And we want to get caught up in that wave, where that wave takes us into the rapture. Just like you're riding a wave at the ocean, you go ahead of the wave so the wave can push you right into the shore. But you have to know that the wave is coming and prepare to take advantage of the force of the wave to take you to shore. In Revelation chapter 16, verse 15, "Behold," Yeshua said, "I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame." Now just go to the left to the Gospel of Luke, Luke 22. Again, talking about the momentum that's building towards the rapture. And it could be this spring season. We just need to let Him, the Father, get us ready. We're talking about Him coming like a thief in the night. And this, what I'm about to read, happened on Passover. See, Passover started this whole process. Passover is such a beautiful time. It's also a time of the greatest warfare, because Satan is so upset that Yeshua stayed up there for us and made a show over principalities and powers. How? By staying up there when they tried to get him to come down. In Luke chapter 22, Yeshua was in a garden about to be arrested, the Garden of Gethsemane. Then Yeshua said unto the chief priests and the captains of the temple and the elders which were come to him, Be ye come out as against a thief with swords and staves? And I was daily with you in the temple. Ye stretched forth no hands against me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness. So this is Passover. This is right at Passover. And he's saying, are you coming against me like I'm a thief? See, these are hints that the Father's trying to show us that a great momentum started on the eclipse and built up so much steam on Passover, a time of deliverance, leading up to our deliverance from this world, going into rapture, and being in the marriage feast with the Lamb. Let's go to the book of Joshua with me. Go way to the left, book of Joshua. In the book of Joshua, where the Jordan River had overflowed, it was the springtime and the flax and the barley are almost ready to harvest. The Jordan River is unusually flooded out at that time because of the spring meltdown. And so this Jordan River crossing marked the end of the wilderness experience for them. And in this time, the Father can end your wilderness experience. If you feel like you're going through a wilderness right now, I'm asking the Father right now to touch you and encourage you, refresh you, restore you from head to toe and in any area of your life as you surrender everything to Him and become part of that sanctification process. Right now, receive it in the name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. So that's pointing to the harvest, the spring harvest, a deliverance from their wilderness experience. Then if you go to the book of Joel with me, Joel is right before Amos, towards the back of the Old Testament. It's right after Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel. Joel chapter 2, verse 15. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly. There's that solemn assembly. Gather the people. Again, the first trumpet is going to sound for us to assemble together and wait for this last trump when we go into rapture. Gather the people. Sanctify the congregation. That's what I'm talking about, that sanctification process. Assemble the elders. Gather the children and those that suck the breast. Let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber and the bride out of her closet. And then in the same chapter it says in verse 23, Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Father, your Elohim, for he had given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month. We just gone through the month of Nisan, the beginning of the year. April 8th is the beginning of the year this year. Nisan 1. And he wants to bless us more than we ever have been blessed before. Not just moderately, but the former and latter rain in the first month. And this blessing has caused such a momentum being built up to escort us right to the rapture. And the full shall be full of wheat, and the fat shall overflow with grapes and oil. And I restore to you the years that the locust had eaten, the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. This is not just an escape from the world. We're going to go out of this world in the rapture as more than conquerors, because Yeshua already conquered for us. And we're more than conquerors, because he did it all for us. And he wants to wrap things up. He wants to restore what is ours before he takes us up in the rapture. So watch him do that right now. But that momentum started on April 8th, the beginning of the year, the time of the eclipse. And it really picked up steam around the Passover season, where he gave them a new beginning, coming out of Egypt. Verse 26, And we shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Father your Elohim, that had dealt wondrously with you, and my people should never be ashamed. Let the Father restore what was taken from you. Let him restore the years that were taken from you. Let him restore the love that was taken from you. the finances. That is a process that he's doing right now. But the greatest process is that this wave, this tidal wave of power from the Father is taking us right into the rapture, right into the shore. We just got to expect it, look for it, watch, and let him just have his way, making us just what he wants us to be, making us more and more like Yeshua every day. Verse 30, again, it all started on April 8th, the beginning of the year. And I'll show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Father come to pass. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Father shall be delivered. What I'm saying is not for everybody. My podcast is not for everybody. It's for those people who are part of the remnant and want to become part of the remnant. Because the road to hell is wide and many are found on it. It leads to destruction. But the road to heaven is straight and narrow and few are found on it. The Father is using this podcast to bring people together back to our Jewish roots only in Him, in Yeshua. Only in Him. Not Jewish tradition and customs, but what Yeshua shows us in our Jewish roots. And they're all brought out on my website under the written messages at henrywalker.org, and 2 free books down below, the bottom of that written message page, Noon and Is the Trinity Really a Mystery? So just to remind some of you, this is a pro-life ministry. We believe that life begins at conception, that the Father is the agent of conception. And remember how much junk is trying to be taught to the young people. Our gender happened at the moment of conception. And so every podcast I pray for the babies in the womb. Their hearts begin to beat around 18 days. And around 4 months, their hearts are pumping about 25 quarts of blood per day. So I'm going to pray for the babies in the womb if you want to join with me. Father, I ask you to touch the babies in the womb. Bring them to a full birth, Father. And we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. And if any of you listening out there had an abortion, repent, ask the Father to forgive you, and go on and don't look back. Follow Him into your purpose and destiny. And also I mention on every podcast, if Satan or your flesh is giving you any thoughts that are contrary to the Father's word, just say out loud, say, I thank you, Yeshua, for that crown of thorns around your head. That was for me. That means my mind is protected by your blood, and I only think your thoughts. And give those thoughts to the Father and go on and follow Him. So again, we're talking about how there's the momentum for a possible spring rapture is happening right now. We need to let the Father have His way and make us more and more like Yeshua every day. So again, if you enjoy these podcasts, share, subscribe, hit the like button, leave me a comment, and remember to next time. This is Evangelist Henry Walker saying, greater is the Father in you, your daddy, the King of the universe, than anything or anybody in the world.
Oh,